Okay, the dawn of the cosmic age. Those illumined ones who are now ready to open the doors of their souls far wider for the light to further illumine them will uplift the whole human race to higher standards. Out of that whole there shall forever come an average few continually until the cosmic age will be strong with growing numbers of the more and more illumined. Knowing, conceiving, thinking, ideal. Creation is an ideal of God. It is one whole ideal. That one whole ideal constitutes what God knows. God thinks the one ideal into countless parts of countless forms. Thus God's thinking takes God knowing apart into seemingly separate ideas, each of which is given its separate form. That is exactly what you do. You may have all of God's knowledge if you become fully illumined with it. But in each communion with God, you get a little more of it each time your soul touches the universal soul. You then take it apart and think it into objective form. You always get that which you ask for if you ask for it with your soul instead of your senses. If you ask for it in words alone, which are just words, you will not receive what you ask for because you have not asked God for it. You have but asked your senses for it. When, however, you have actually written your desires into your heartbeat, as I have automatically done all of my life from moment to moment, you unfailingly acquire the knowledge you asked for. It comes to you in a timeless flash, in the language of light, which God uses to talk to you and me when we wish to talk with Him. Having thus acquired that part of the one whole ideal, which you have asked for in your heart, you then think it into the form of a concept by imagining it into a form. This conceptual form may be misty or nebulous at first. Do not act upon it while it is still nebulous. Decentrate to the zero of the light again, over and over again. Then concentrate. Each time you concentrate, you more clearly see the image of it in your inspired imagining. So long as it is still in embryo, do not give it birth into the objective universe of form and motion. Dwell on it until it becomes as clear to your inner vision as the body you give it becomes clear to your outer vision. If it is an invention, meditate upon it until you clearly see it. Do not waste time experimenting. See the embryo of it completely mentally before you spend time on it physically. Otherwise, it will be immature. If it is a cell of something, assemble all of the elements of it together until you can vision it clearly before approaching your client. If it is a motive for a sympathy, hear it completely in the silence of your soul before you give it a body. No matter what your desire is, take it to God for a spiritual form before you give it a physical one. Get into the fixed habit of seeking that zero of stillness in the light before starting to think or act. When you finally act to give your concept a physical form, keep your soul attuned to the universal soul. Hold fast to that ecstasy of inner joyousness which comes from working knowingly with God. Your creation will be finished in much less time, and you will know no fatigue. Talk to God constantly in His wordless, rhythmic language of light. The moment you find yourself working alone with your own ego, stop working, for the emotions of your sensed body are making you aware of it, and your work will not be enduring without the light of your soul in it. Physical emotions immediately immediately smother spiritual inspiration. You can know an ideal timelessly, all of it, but to think it into objective form is to take it apart for extension into the three-dimensional universe of time and space. To thus think it, you divide and multiply it into many conditioned material forms and set them in motion to become a part of that physical universe of multi-conditioned moving forms. This creative process requires a technique, but knowledge and inspiration requires no technique. Always remember that God is creating His universe by giving body forms to mind-imagined forms. Likewise, you are creating your universe by giving objective body forms to your imagined forms. You must, however, conceive the ideal for those forms before you begin to build them into your imaginings. Then you must imagine them fully before borning them objectively. When your imagined ideal is sufficiently clear, then start creating it whether you know its technique or not. Learn the technique of it in the doing of it. Always remember that a technique is something that your body acquires, and that anybody can acquire any technique, but knowledge and inspiration you do not acquire. You already have that. All you need to do is to awaken it. And to awaken it, all you need is desire to awaken it. The moment you have the desire and let God know of it, you will then begin to know that glorious language of the light which you yourself are. Inspiration will then come to you, and in that inspiration your desire is being fulfilled with the knowing which that inspiration is. The language of light is wordless, but in it is the essence of meaning. You yourself can put it into words, for that is but a technique. Likewise, whatever form you wish to give it, you yourself can translate the essence of that divine language of light into form through any medium by acquiring technique. That is something which your body does by acting solely with your will. Through your will, you command your body to express your desire. Your body is but an automatic machine which must be manipulated by your will. It must be trained by your will to fulfill every technique of expression. And it may take years to do so. Train your body to automatically obey your will. That is why it takes years of practice for a body to become a perfect musical instrument, or an instrument which paints, writes, or sculpts with tools which are but extensions of a body. Conception of ideal is required as seed of ideal. Your conception of an ideal has the same relation to that ideal as the seed of an oak tree has to the full-grown oak tree. Your imagining is recorded in your very soul, and from the stillness of your soul, the ideal extends into form, as the form of the oak extends from the stillness of its formless seed. The inner joyousness of conceiving an ideal and imagining its form and purpose is as uplifting as the created extensions of it is, and it is purposeful even if it but uplifts yourself. To be purposeful for the world, you must give your inspired imaginings a formed body which responds to the senses of man. It is through this action-reaction of giving it a material body that you make it a masterpiece, by extending your soul into it by moment-to-moment communion with God to give love to your creation. If you do not, this part of this is blacked out. If you do not experience love from your soul, you do not give it life. Not having life or love given to it, it cannot re-give life of love to inspire others. It is already dead and soon will be buried in the trash basket of dead things. A masterpiece of any product whatsoever is that to which the life and love of the Creator's soul has been extended to be reflected from soul to soul. The glory of the unseen and unheard. There is an indescribable glory all along the road which leads from your active thinking to the stillness of deep meditation. If you cannot actually go to the forest or sea, the better to commune with God, go there in your imagination. If some problem demands your thoughts, let the imagined tones of the sea drown them out. If you imagine the sea and hear the rhythm of its waves pounding upon the shores as echoes of the heartbeat of the universe resounding within you, or if you hear the breezes whispering in the pines with your inner ears, the glory of that ecstasy will soon drown out dross thoughts of earth. Meditation transports you from the world of sensing the motion of things materially to imagining them cosmically. It transports you from the world of blatant sounds which sear the senses to the world of rhythmic silences which is without body, the world of the soul and the seat of things unborn which await their birth through you. It is your escape from emotions with its tensions and nervous strains to the ecstasy of your soul's high heavens. Earth's music is melodic and chains you to earth. The rhythms and tones of nature's music which sing its octaves in the language of light have always within them the pulsing rhythm of the universal heartbeat. Always the 1-2, 1-2 pulsing of the father-mother heartbeat of borning, reborning forms of things which manifest the father-mother pulsing rhythms of the soul's high heavens. Always in your deep meditation the music of the silences from which sounds of earth spring is like unto the aftermath of the great symphonies of cosmic masters which have refolded from sounds of earth which your ears have heard into your very soul which still hears them in the pulse beat of your imagining. Never would you hear the 1-2-3 of waltz rhythms in the soul's high heavens, for that syncopation brings you quickly back to earth and to awareness of your body emotions and its senses. That 1-2-3 rhythm makes you want to dance. To those whose desires are so deeply rooted in the senses of earth that their deep appeal is from the complex I've never said this word, so pardon me. The complex syncopation of jazz, the silences of the high heavens are but a deep void, and as though they were not. Even of such a one it may not be said that he is without soul. It may be said of him only that the light of his soul is dimmed or sleeping, and he himself can awaken it if he but listens long enough and often enough to the rhythms of the soul's high heavens, to awaken recognition of the light which is within all men. The story is told that Diamond Jim Brady thus awakened his sleeping inner self quite accidentally. He bought an automatic piano and many jazz and foxtrot records for his worldly friends, and ordered many classic records for his highbrow friends, of whom he had many. While playing these classic records, he recognized within him the glory of the universal heartbeat rhythms. It is said that he listened to those records alone for hours until he became completely transformed culturally. I am in no way suggesting to you that you should not listen to the music which excites your body emotions, for they are good when properly divided between the rhythms of earth and the rhythms of heaven. We need to live gloriously on earth as well as in the high heavens. But to live the rhythms of earth alone is to be but clay of earth, chained to earth as slave of earth, never soaring into the high heavens of the light of your immortality. Mortality is a prison cell from which you can escape only upon the wings of your immortality. And that ends that chapter. The next will be the lesson number 2. And it is a continuation of meditation scientifically explained, further considering techniques. And that will be, no, I've only gone 15 minutes. I'll start that right now. There is much confusion regarding the relation of inspired ideal to the technique of its expression. Thousands of times I've heard people say, I would never be an artist, for I could not even draw a straight line. For this reason, I would like to expand what I said in our first lesson regarding this relationship. I have told you that anybody can acquire a technique to give a material body to any ideal, but so can an automatic machine or a tape recorder. A technique can be photographed or electrically repeated, and such a recording of a rendition by a master may even be immeasurably better than the technique of the human, for the automatic recorder may record much of the soul of the master's technique, while the human may have acquired a perfect technique with his senses, but be lacking in soul. Just as an inspired conception is the result of a conference between your soul and the universal soul to produce a thought body, so must your rendition into a material body continue that soul-to-soul conference. Every technical rendition of a painting, a symphony, or product of a factory which has been conceived by the soul of a master must also be rendered by the soul of the master. Every brushstroke or tone of symphony must conform to the nature of God, reflected in the nature of the master. Love is the basis of the spirit, and the law of love is the basis of creation. The nature of God is to give out his love for re-giving. The nature of the master must be to give out love, to inspire others to re-give love. It has often been my good fortune to hear such masters as Paderewski, I know I'm not saying that right, and this other word, Gabriello Switch. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce these people's names. Practice scales and finger exercises. The unthinking listener might marvel at such skills, while one who listens with inner ears hears the silence of the soul even in one's practicing. The soul alone can give out love. The body can render a perfect technical reproduction, but if the love nature of God is not in it, it is not art. For the art of anything is not in the skill of rendering a visible or audible thing, but in the beauty and love which only the stillness of the light of your soul can give to it. And therein lies the difference between the geniuses of the master and soulless mediocrity. That is why your constant communion with God is necessary for every moment of life and every stage of your creation. God must sit with you in your piano stool or workbench. Your hands must be his hands. Your thinking must be his thinking. Love must be interwoven in every stitch of whatever pattern you are weaving, every word you are writing, and every interchange between yourself and your fellow man. And as love is rhythmically repeated in its givings and regivings, to synchronize with the givings of your outward breath to the heavens and their regivings to you, and as such balanced rhythmic interchange between your heartbeat pulsings and all other electric extensions from the stillness of your soul is law. The basic fundamental law of all creating things is all this electric universe your own masterpiece, is the measure of how divinely you have conceived it and how worthily you have rendered it in balance with universal law. To the extent that you can extend the beauty of your imaged rhythms to material bodies built in the images of your spiritual conceptions, those rhythms which you create are masterpieces of great art. The very measure of the quality of your material interpretation lies in your ability to translate imaged forms and rhythms of the universal heartbeat into bodily forms and rhythms which can re-inspire others with the ecstasy of your inspiration. When you inspire others, you are manifesting the nature of God and the fulfillment of His law by giving love. Those whom you re-inspire are likewise manifesting the nature of God and fulfilling His law by re-giving love. You cannot re-inspire others, however, if you leave God out of your technical rendition. That is why meditation is necessarily continuous. That is why great masters never go into their concert hall or to their easels or workbenches without an interval of time to forget materiality, to seek the zero of the still light which centers their consciousness before extending their thought images out from that stillness into the three-dimensional universe of moving electric waves, which creation is. Not only every day should be started by seeking that zero of stillness, but every moment from the beginning of anything to its fulfillment. How often I have literally opened the door of my studio after some disturbing telephone call or other distraction to let my sense self out and let God in. You cannot do anything of yourself alone. Whether you know it or not, you have to acquire God power to even lift your finger. You are automatically controlled in every action. Why not be controlled by working with God knowingly at all times and being fully aware that God and His law are working with you? Continuous meditation means continuous God awareness, and that continuity of awareness is forever leading you higher and higher into the high heavens of your own mountaintop. That and that alone is the great glory of life and of living. That awareness and that alone leads you to masterliness of achievement, peace, prosperity, happiness, and the love of all mankind, which is forever enduring. The very essence of meditation. The basic reason for meditation is that you want to ask something from God. There is no other reason for it. And you do not begin to ask God for anything until you begin to realize your oneness with God. You then ask God because you realize that you cannot fulfill your soul's desire without Him. When you finally do ask Him, you naturally ask how you may fulfill your soul's desire. "O God, show me the way. Illumine my path with thy light," you say wordlessly in your heart. This your soul asks in the silence of the universal soul. Naturally, your inner ears cannot hear the answer except in the silences of the light of inspiration. Naturally, also, you cannot comprehend the wordless answer from the silences of rest in His light unless your soul is so attuned to the universal soul that your inner ears can hear the answer in the universal language of light. That is the language in which God talks to inspired man who knows God in him and is thus illumined. Naturally, you seek aloneness with God in the quiet of your chamber or workshop or in the forest of nature, where the nature of God is being made manifest in the forms and whisperings of rhythms which echo within your own heartbeat as one. That very desire puts you in the mood for meditation, and the more you thus become companion with God, the more readily you comprehend His language of light and can put words and forms to it. When you have formed the habit of constant communion with God, you will not then have to make any conscious effort or seek the quiet of nature's environment to induce it. It will become a working habit, a fixed habit of working knowingly with God under any circumstances. I can as immediately decentrate to the zero of the light of all knowing in a subway, if I so desire, as in a forest. Let us analyze what is meant by soul's desire. What is the greatest thing in the world which you can ask for or become? There's only one answer, and that is to be like unto God and to manifest His nature. In its simplest form, just what exactly does that mean? In its simplest form, how can we be like God or manifest His nature? The simplest answer to that is to say that God is love, life, and truth, which lies in the light of all knowledge and power. That is what God is. That is the nature of God, the universal mind or soul. Now, as to what God does, the answer can be just as simple. God extends His knowledge and power from the still light of His mind, through the pulsations of His thinking, to waves of moving, divided lights, to create one pulsing body, to manifest the love, life, and truth of His knowing, which constitutes His nature. And that is exactly what you do to the extent of your knowledge and ability. You extend your knowledge and your power from the still light of your mind, through the pulsations of your thinking, to create your universe in forms which reflect your nature. Whatever you create is the image of you. You call it your individuality or personality. Whatever it is your image, projected into forms imagined by you to manifest your nature. You create a manifestation of your own self by thinking your knowing into form. If you know but little and think but little, you will create yourself into a little person. If you think out of balance, you will create an unbalanced individual with an unbalanced body. If you are a hypochondriac, you have made yourself into one instead of a genial, cheerful, happy, and healthy leader of men. Whatever you wish to become, you may become. If you create your own personality alone, by yourself, it will have all of the weaknesses of the senses. The more you ask God to help you make yourself into His image, the more power of His mind you will have to fashion yourself into a powerful individual. When His nature and yours are one, you will then be a man of cosmic power, and your creations will manifest your nature and God's nature as one. Our very name for God's creation is nature, for that is what nature is. I shall define nature for you in simple words. Nature is an electric wave thought image of God's nature, electrically projected from His formless and unconditioned one light into countless many forms of conditioned light, which we call matter. And the next portion of this will be how your meditation affects others. But I want to end this with just a little thoughts of my own, because for many years I had never read anyone like Walter Russell, and my only conception of God was that He was judgeful and cruel and revengeful and needy to be praised and jealous, and all these things about God sounded like things about a tyrant, and about a very neurotic tyrant who demanded obedience, or he would maybe cause you to starve and have to eat your own children. He said that in one of the scriptures I read just the other day. If his people, his own people, did not obey, he would cause such a famine that they would have to eat their own children. And, anyone who wants worship and will get it by making you so afraid if you don't that all these dreadful things will happen to you, well, that's not someone I can emulate or want to be like. But when I read about the God that Walter Russell knew, well, then I could relate to that God because it wasn't like the Bible God that I didn't want to be like at all. But now